First Class Fatherhood. That is where Alec Lace comes in with his popular podcast.
And one of the most interesting was on a podcast.
Alec Lace interviews high-profile fathers from actors to NFL players with a vision to change the narrative of fatherhood and family life.
Joining me now, First Class Father, Travis Mills. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Hope you're doing well, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. Let's start it like this. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
I have two. I have an 11-year-old little girl, and I have a 5-year-old little boy.
Very cool. You all done? You going for more?
That's not up to me. That's up to the missus. I think we're done, but at the same time, I don't know. She made a couple comments yesterday, actually, that made me go, oh, maybe we're not done. But hey, not up to me, like I said, and I look forward to any and all opportunities.
All right, to be continued. If you could, Travis, please take a second here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Absolutely. So I was a 82nd Airborne infantryman with the deployment to Afghanistan. The first one, I met my wife. The second one, I had been gone for a year, came back, and we had our first child, my daughter. In between my second and third deployment and my third deployment in Afghanistan, I set my backpack down in a bomb, and the bomb went off, and it took both arms and both legs as a result of hitting that IED. So now I am one of 5 surviving quadruple amputees. So I have prosthetics now, and my daughter was 6 months old at the time when I got injured. And, when I got to see them a week after my injury, I told my wife she should leave me. I didn't think I had anything left to give. And that's not the life I choose for her. And my wife said she's going to stay. And my daughter was probably my biggest reason for fighting back and being the person I am today. So that's, that was back in 2012, and we're 10 years past the injury, and, fortunate to keep going.
Yeah, obviously your story is incredibly inspiring, and thank you for your service. I know that now you inspire so many people around the world with your story. And so I know you said you were in between deployments there. So take me back then, when you first became a father, how did that experience kind of shift your perspective on life?
Oh, I mean, Chloe was never planned at first, I will say. Like, it was an exciting blessing. And when she was born, I mean, it was just, I'm the first one up changing diapers. I'm the last one up, making sure she gets to go to sleep and be comfortable. And, she's everything. And then I tell people, with all the work that I do, I have the Travis Mills Foundation, which has grown to be one of the top veteran service organizations in the nation. I'm a pretty well-known speaker on the corporate circuit, and I have a few other businesses, but you can really chalk it up to one individual of my success, and that would be Chloe. We took an idea for a foundation to bring out combat and service-connected injured veterans and show them how to do things adaptively as a whole family unit. And I was at my first ever gala last year, and I choked up and broke down, and Chloe was in the crowd, and I said, I tell you what, there's one, so if you want, dedicate this whole building or this whole facility or all the things that we do here and be able to accomplish to one person, it's Chloe. And, that's when it all changed, right? I would do anything for anybody, but, I go the extra mile for my children. And, my daughter and me are best friends, which I love. My son, it's hereditary. He's a mama's boy, but as much as I get like, oh, stop that, I get it, because so am I.
Yeah, I got my girl on the 4th try. We have 3 boys, then we got our girl. So I can't imagine. She's definitely she's definitely runs the show over here. I could say it like that. But obviously, I would imagine, what were some of the biggest challenges for you? Obviously, being a dad in the beginning of this, being an amputee has to be very, very difficult to do just anything, but let alone be a dad and get involved. What was the transition then to having your second kid? How much more adapted were you able to do all the things like changing the diapers, feeding the kids? What was that challenge like for you in the beginning, and then how did it evolve with the second kid?
Well, for Chloe, she was 6 months old when I got injured. So I left when she was 4 months old, came back when she was 6 months old. And, I was able to learn how to walk with my daughter. I would work out and do push-ups with her on my chest, or not push-ups, but do sit-ups with her on my chest. She was there every day. 19 months we were at Walter Reed, she was there with me. And I'll be honest, I don't change diapers. So like having a kid's not like that bad of a deal for me. You know what I mean? I don't got to change diapers. But I found ways to feed her, and ways to, to adapt and do things to where we live in a world that's so incredible that my wife is going on weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday deal. this weekend, and it just so happens that I'm going to be by myself with my kids, just hanging out, having fun. So, the modern day technology and advancements that they have for prosthetics really, really benefit me. I take my daughter and son to school, independently by myself. I take them out to lunches and dinners and into their gymnastics and karate and whatever they got going on. So I guess the evolution was really more about my recovery of getting better. And then now I don't let my handicap or my disability, hinder their life or make them feel like they got cheated or they are missing out on something. I'm right there with all the other moms and dads at the sporting events. I'm right there at the, meetings and the PTA stuff. And, if anything, my kids are more annoyed by me now because if they have a bad day or have something that bothers them, that they said they can't do. I'm like, oh, excuse me, what was that? I'm like, oh my gosh, Dad, I get it. Never give up, never quit. Your slogan. I'm so tired of it.
Yeah, obviously, it's one of those things, too, for so many people that complain about every ordinary day things, not realizing and cherishing what it is that we have. And I think, especially in this society now where social media, we see it seems like everybody else is doing so much better than we are. And we start to forget that the things that we have, we easily overlook them. We're not grateful for them until we come across. Now, somebody in your situation now that you're in, is there people that you look to and say, wow, what am I complaining about? Look at what this guy's going through. Do you kind of have that for yourself that keeps you motivated and moving?
I can't say I do. I can't say I do that. I don't like to measure. A lot of people will say like, oh, geez, I have problems, but they're not as bad as yours. And look at me, because I'm missing both arms and legs. And I tell them it's not fair, because everyone's biggest problem is their biggest problem. Whatever their problem is, that's their biggest problem they're facing. So I'm not going to minimize or downplay what they're going through. But at the same time, I think what's helped me out the most is realizing like, this is my life. This is me. It's not, oh, I don't have my arms and legs anymore. It's like, okay, well, that happened. And now I got to live life to the fullest every day that I can while I have the blessing or the ability to still to be alive. Well, a lot of my guys didn't make it back home. So people that I talk to sometimes think it's kind of odd when I tell them like, no, my injuries are just who I am. I'm a recalibrated guy, recalibrated warrior, if anything. And I have a few extra steps in the morning. My caps and my legs go on, then my pants, my arm, then my shirt, and I go about my day. And I think that mindset's really helped me because instead of dwelling on what happened or looking at it like, oh, geez, look what happened. I look at it as this is just me. This is how I'm built. This is how I am. And, people wonder like, what's a bad day like for you? And I'm like, I'd probably drop my phone and break my screen, but then I just order a new one. They're like, yeah, but like when you have a real bad day, I'm like, I don't necessarily have a bad day. Like I don't sit there and dwell on, the fact I got blown up or the fact I have no arms and legs. I sit there and do the best I can. Like I just made a sandwich. My wife's out to lunch with her mom and dad and my son. And I just made my own sandwich. You know what I mean? And I ate it, and it was delicious. Pepper jack cheese and turkey. How do you go wrong?
Delish. And let me ask you this, Travis, too, because like I mentioned, my daughter's my youngest, and my discipline skills with her need to be improved. There's no doubt about it. My wife will get on me with that. I definitely discipline her differently than I do with my boys. What is it like for you having your daughter, your best friend? How are you as a disciplinarian, as a father, and is it different than the discipline style you grew up with?
Well, it's not fair. It's not fair at all for how great Chloe is as a kid. She gets a little sassy every now and then, and we have a little conversation. Her and her mom, obviously, they're more combative with things like that than I am. But no, Chloe gets it. Now with my son, he likes to fight. Like every time he runs up, he just likes to punch me in the stomach. Like that's his thing. Like, hey, Dad, wham! And I'm like, oh, he goes, that didn't hurt. You're so tough. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. But I grew up in a house where, you had discipline and you understood what was right, what was wrong. And I kind of, we've transferred that to our children, Kelsey and I. And, for the most part, we have really respectful, awesome kids. We just had Chloe's parent teacher conference, for her 6th grade. And the teacher's like, she's great. She's social, but she's understands when she has to be, quiet. She gets her work done on time. Seems like she gets it. And, I am worried about when Dax has to go to school, my son, because he's more like me, I think.
Well, I want to ask you too, Travis, because one of the things that really drives me nuts is right now, it seems like in this country, this being I'm going to put this out here on Veterans Day. So this being Veterans Day, patriotism is something that seems to be looked down upon now in our country. It doesn't seem to be that thing like I remember, obviously, the days after 9/11, that spirit of patriotism was alive in everybody, no matter what side of the aisle you were on, no matter where you came from, everybody had that patriotic love of the country in them, and that seems to have dwelt now. It seems to be looked down upon, and one of the major reasons why I bring so many veterans on is because I am so grateful. My family is so grateful for the service and sacrifice from so many men and women, and I know we wouldn't stand a chance in the world without these guys. So how do you kind of talk to your kids about patriotism? How do you talk to them about the country, what America means?
Well, I mean, we're fortunate. We live in a small town where, patriotism is still something. Every street pole has an American flag on it, and they talk about the history of what the world's been, or what, the U.S. has been through. So, it's a simpler conversation. I mean, people ask if I would ever have my kids join the military if they wanted to, or if I'd let them. I said, yeah, absolutely. There's 264 different jobs you can do. You don't got to be on the front line, shooting like I was. I wanted that job. I re-enlisted for that job. But as far as I teach my kids about, the American flag and what it stands for and what it means, of course we do that. And, my son loves to have shirts that have American flags on them. Chloe, respects the country and understands, the world that we live in. And I think luckily the NFL, with them taking the knee, they took such a big hit that they realized this might not be the message they want to go for. And now we're seeing a shift in politics because it seems like one party is trying to, disingenuinely, I don't know. It just seems like we're shifting now to going back towards being more patriotic. I'm not trying to talk politics. I apologize. I didn't mean to get into that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I mean, it seems to come, unfortunately, like when you talk about patriotism or the American flag or the history, all of a sudden it becomes a political idea. Like, as if you love the country, you're on one side. If you don't, you're on the other, which to me is so mind-boggling because it never used to seem to be that way growing up. It seemed like both sides both loved and wanted what was best for the country, and being patriotic was just something that naturally came with that.
Yeah, and that's a big problem for me, is that we've gotten away from being patriotic on both sides, or being, you can be proud to be an American. I mean, why is that a bad thing? How is that something that's frowned upon? The Pledge of Allegiance was taken out of schools. Like, why was that? Like, it's not anything. It's look where you live at. Look at the opportunities that you have. And I recommend anybody, if they really want to, if they really want to see what the world's actually like outside of these wonderful borders that we have, go out there, go to Mexico even, but get off the resort and go into Mexico and tell me how bad you have it. But that's everybody's right. I guess I did fight for that right for people to be able to say what they want to say and act how they want to act, but doesn't mean I have to agree with it either. And I think that's where I have my issue, and that's where I'm trying to teach my kids, people can have their own opinions, but just because they have an opinion doesn't mean you have to agree with it, and you don't have to be silent on your opinion if you disagree, with what they're trying to tell you to do or say or how to act. So, I'm mindful of it. I don't want to offend nobody. I don't need to get in any more fist fights. But the thing is, we teach our kids one thing, and if somebody teaches their kids something different, I hope they can just get along and not worry about that small stuff. I mean, how many families, are not gathering anymore because of the divide of politics, which is so dumb. And I'm hoping that after going through COVID and not being able to see all your family members and be with your friends and everybody the way that you used to, maybe people will just, calm it down a bit and get back to just, having fun. We have more in common than we think, and we agree on more than we disagree on. I mean, I started a clothing line. Matter of fact, we're going pretty heavy, today, with it coming out, called Rebel for Good. It's all about just be a good person, go against the grain, be a rebel, but be a rebel for good. And do good in the world. And, I feel pretty passionate about it. And I love my daughter so much, she's going to eventually come out with Rebel for Good Kids and have her own clothing line probably in 6 months.
Man, really great stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's just nice to be nice. You know what I mean? Kindness is free, So, I mean, I don't understand it either. And I know that social media, as I mentioned, plays a big part in this because it seems like people are free to kind of say whatever they want on there. And they're really negative towards everybody on there, where it can be used for so much good and to get across such a great message. But the clickbait world that it's become, and I know that just for myself doing this podcast, I'm on the phone more, I'm using social media more, and my kids see me do that and they emulate that. And I'm trying to get a hold of it, especially I have 2 teenagers. What is it like for you right now with the technology? How are you kind of handling that with your kids?
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm fortunate. We're pretty blessed with a pretty awesome kid. With our oldest, with Chloe. I mean, both kids are awesome, don't get me wrong, but she has a phone, but she's on Messenger Kids when she talks to her friends. Like, I don't think she's really figured out, or the other kids haven't figured out, like they can actually text back and forth, and then we'll have to worry about stuff. But right now they're all messenger kids, and they love we read everything. So we're still in control of that. But I instill confidence in Chloe and in Dax, and I want them to be the one that orders their food at a restaurant, makes eye contact, understands you stand up, shake a hand, and say hi. And also, I don't teach my kids to be mean, but I do teach them to stand up for themselves. Like, they don't like something that's going on, say it, and not necessarily be a tattletale, but say it, stand up for yourself. And I think so much is lost on that. It's like people just try to ignore the situation or avoid the conflict or the confrontation, when sometimes the confrontation has to be had. And I'm one of the worst I know about it. If there's a hard conversation, it's one of the hardest things for me to do in the civilian world. In the Army, super easy. But I'm fortunate to own or be a part owner in about 4 or 5 different companies, and sometimes a hard conversation has to be had regardless if you want to have it or not. And I'm trying to teach my kids that same thing. So if they get bullied or someone says something bad about their shirt or something like that, I said, don't let anybody tear you down, because they want to make you feel bad about yourself. And I think that's one of the most important life lessons I can teach my kids.
Yeah, it's so important too, Travis, because like I mentioned, the peer pressure, I think, or that kids seem to be feeling less self-esteem nowadays. I know that the youth suicide has risen every year consecutively since 2007, which just by coincidence is the first year the smartphone came out. And it's been every single year that the youth suicide goes up. And it never used to be a thing growing up that we would hear of that happened so common. And just in my son's high school this year, one of his classmates killed themselves. And it's like that was the kind of thing growing up was like almost completely unheard of. And now it seems to be happening more and more. And I think a lot of it has to do with what we're doing with this technology and stuff like that. But I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier that you were one of 5 quadruple amputees from Afghanistan. Do you stay in touch with all of them? Do you know any of the other ones?
So I've met all of them, right? And a few, like, 2 of them keep to themselves, and we went recover together. So to say we're friends would be a lie. Say we're acquaintances, absolutely. They're nice guys. Nothing wrong, with either them or myself. We just don't stay in touch. Another guy, Todd, I'm more friendly with. He's the 2nd ever quadruple amputee, but the 5th one, Taylor Morris, we're close friends. He recovered. He was a month after I was injured, and I think that's what it came down to. It didn't come down to injury-based friendship. It was more about who was injured at the time that you really became friends with. So Kelsey and I, we have a group of 5 other families that recovered together. A single leg amputee, 2 double leg amputees. I'm sorry, 3 double leg amputees, another quadruple amputee. And I'm trying to think if that does the math right. But anyway, we're the 5th family, so that makes sense. But we all talk, we all hang out. They got, they're either married or got married. They all have kids or had kids since, and we're all very close and connected. So the 5th one, Taylor Morris, he's from Iowa. He's a good friend of mine.
Very cool. And I know that I had seen it was announced in 2017. They still have it up there. Tough as They Come. Sylvester Stallone was supposed to be involved in this project movie about your life. Is that still in the works? Is that something that's coming up?
It's bits and pieces here and there. It got put on the back burner because of some social media stuff that went on with Sylvester Stallone. And then Fox 21st Century sold out. So it's still getting bounced around. We will see. Magnolia Network today has a documentary coming out called Hi, I'm Travis. So on the Magnolia Network, it comes out tonight, and everybody can check that out. It's an hour-long doc. It's really good. I really like it, how it came out, and we'll see about the big picture stuff, the big motion picture stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm like I tell people, I'm fortunate to still be alive. I'm lucky to still be here. I'll teach my kids everything I can to make them successful and respectful, human beings. And if I don't want them to fight anybody, but at the same time, like, I need to make sure that they have a backbone, they understand what's right and wrong, and how you go about handling problems.
Yeah, well said. Who was set to play you in the movie? So Sylvester Stallone, or who would you want to play? Like, who do you see playing you in a movie?
Well, I'm not sure if you're an actor, but you look the part. You look good. So if it can't be you, then I don't know. Back in the day when they were doing this at 17, it was going to be either Adam Driver was signed on to do it, former Marine guy, Kylo Ren. He signed on to do it. Everybody said Chris Pratt might be a good second. I thought Zac Efron, they could superimpose him like they did Bradley Cooper, because Zac Efron I find to be hilarious in anything he does. But at the end of the day, like, hey, if they do it, great. If they don't, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. And I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to meet with all these people and hang out with Sly and see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope to see that happen, and get me before I lose the rest of my hair, so I can jump in there on the roll if we're going to get moving on this. Yeah, and you mentioned earlier too, like you told your wife in the beginning when this first happened, you should move on, you should leave me, and all that. What has that relationship been like, Travis? What has it been like with your relationship, like with your wife, growing from the incident to where it is today? What has that relationship been like?
I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. She's hands down just the best. I mean, the fact that she stayed with a guy with no arms, no legs, who was giving a clear out. I was giving a very clear out, like it's okay, financially fund whatever you need. To going through the hardships of doing everything on her own now. Like I can do a lot of stuff, and even now I work a lot and I go hard, but I don't do a lot of the little things I used to do. I mean, I do quite a bit actually. I don't want to build myself on a pedestal because she's not in the room to defend this. But like every marriage, it's work. Every marriage has their ups and downs, and they're good and they're bad. And it's been 14 years of marriage, and 10 of it's been with me being injured, which is wild. When I met her, I was 6'3", 275 pounds, lifted weights all the time, very athletic guy, and was a leader of soldiers. And went from that guy to getting my arms and legs cut off. So, to say anything, else except for she's absolutely amazing would be, would be a lie, or would not be telling enough of the story. And then, at first she stayed for obligation. Now my social media following is pretty big. So I'm like, if you leave, I'll ruin you. So it's, blackmail. But we have fun. We have fun. We attack life without it, getting us down, because we don't look at my injuries and see me as any different. And, when school pickup comes, I go get the kids. When, I do all the things I'm supposed to do as a father, regardless of if I have prosthetics or regular arms and legs.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful story, Travis. And I know I mentioned here Veterans Day. I got a lot of military dads listening on the podcast here. What is and I know I mentioned earlier youth suicide, but we hear about the veterans suicide with 22 a day, 25 a day, whatever it may be, whatever it is. It's a horrific number that we hear of. What's your message to the veteran dads that are out there listening in on the podcast for this day?
Well, I mean, if they're combat veterans, that need help, we have a program called Warrior Path Program at the Travis Mills Foundation. It's one of the top in the nation. It's free for anybody that signs up and voluntarily does that. And we'd love to have you and help you through your situation. And we understand like post-traumatic stress is a real thing, but we also call it post-traumatic growth, because you can grow from it even though you have post-traumatic stress, as well as we're still going to struggle, right? Everybody's going to struggle with something, regardless of military or civilian. So we teach how to struggle well at this course. So if anybody wants to know about that, just visit travismillsfoundation.org and click Warrior Path Program. But honestly, if people just would, come together and talk about their feelings and stuff like that. Like I'm not the best person to say this after how I treated mental health. I didn't treat mental health with anything except for my name, rank, and my social security number 3 times. And I told them that's what you tell the enemy. So take it and leave or leave. And I never talked to anybody about what was going on, with me internally. So looking back, I know that wasn't probably the right way to attack it. And I think if you do need help, you have to be strong enough to admit you need help and go find that help, because it is a real thing. And if instead of suffering in silence, you might as well go out there and see all the people willing to help you and wanting to get you back on track. So that's kind of my take. I hate that we live in a place where people are too afraid to talk about their feelings and talk about what's going on with them to get help. But hopefully we can change that narrative, one day at a time, and get everybody to open up and express what they're going through, so that we can help them get through it.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, I'm going to drop the link to your foundation in the description of this podcast episode. So anybody, veteran dad, a family member of a veteran, hit the link, check it out. And last thing I want to hit you with here, Travis, I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
I had my friend over earlier, and he's about to be a dad for the first time. And I said, let me give you the advice I give all the other people that are in your situation. And I said, nobody's got it figured out. No book's going to be 100% right, no matter how many you read. And whatever you do is going to be fine. People have been doing this for thousands of years. And honestly, like, whatever you do is going to be great. So don't worry about it. It's okay to feel like you're overwhelmed. It's okay to set down your newborn for 5-10 minutes and walk away and regroup. But just know that there's nothing that that should overwhelm you. And people have been through this before. So I don't try to say the whole, and I'll tell you where this comes from. I hate it when people are like, oh, you just wait. Well, yeah, what else do I got to do? Like, what else do I have to do? You know what I mean? Like, you think I can speed time up? And, then people are like, well, experts say this. I'm like, let me tell you something about the expert that sleeps in the same bed as me, which is my wife. She said, the book said not to do this with the baby in the middle and the little sleeping in the middle thing. But with the right pillow walls and the little crib thing that you buy at Bed Bath & Beyond, that little baby slept just fine all night, and so did I. And that's all I cared about. Like, everybody's sleeping, everybody's happy. So, as you go through, you figure it out. And when you figure it out, you got to learn by experience.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. I got to say, Travis Mills, you're a first-class father all the way. And thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Hey, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. Hope everybody has a great Veterans Day. Thanks for the support.
You have been listening to First Class Fatherhood. First Class Fatherhood is a family-made media podcast. Please visit www.firstclassfatherhood.com or www.familymade.com to find out more details. You can order First Class Fatherhood advice and wisdom from high-profile dads on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Proverbs 22:6 tells us, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will never depart from it. God bless, and I'll catch you next time.